All right, it's Jam TV show 159.
Here we are.
Dave.
Here we are. How you doing?
All right. So I wanted to check in a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I hang for the whole thing or not.
How you feeling? Typhoid, David?
I know. I can't even. I don't even know where to begin, where to start. I feel a whole lot better. Thank you.
You look good. You look good. You sound okay.
You feel a whole lot
Yeah,
better.
man. Yes, definitely. I love that song.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah. I can't believe it, guys. You know, here I was, very concerned about you, Ed.
I was pretty
worried
concerned
sick.
too. Yeah,
I was concerned. I was. You know, I was.
For those who don't know, I had the plague about a month ago, and David has the plague now. But I guess you're doing okay. So.
Yeah. So I'm still testing positive.
Yeah. Okay. I did too after.
No, I'm not happy with that, Ed.
And after how long is this?
Okay, I tested positive. My wife is reminding me on the 5th.
All right.
Okay, and I gave my buddy Guy tickets away to a friend of ours.
That can't be true. Oh,
it is true.
Sad.
It is true. Actually, it is. I was supposed to see Buddy Guy on the 6th.
Yeah, I remember.
At the Hollywood Bowl. So, but look, the tickets didn't get wasted, guys. Right?
Good.
He was able to go take his wife. They had a great time. He took a couple of little video clips and some photos for me because, you know, I asked him, I said, if you get a chance, you know, because that's what we do, you know. And he did that. And it looked like a good time had by all.
Buddy.
And wow. As you guys know, I think you know, my daughter, she brought it home. We're talking about COVID.
Right.
She brought it home from school, from college.
Those kids today.
And well, you know, she didn't know, guys. You know, she thought she was like having maybe a cold kind of thing, maybe, but not sure. But by that time, Daddy Robinson is already up in it, and Mom came after, way after.
Right.
She just couldn't escape it.
So Jacqueline is fine. Okay, she's fine. Her birthday was yesterday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes. Her birthday was yesterday.
She's gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you, man. 24 years of age. You guys remember 24, right?
Yeah, my daughter's 25.
Oh, come on. Look, Bill. Look, that's it. So she's doing her thing. She's good. She's negative. And like I said, I'm going to test again tomorrow just because I need to know where I stand.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Okay. It's funny. This is timely because I was having a discussion with my wife last night, and so I had the first 2 vaccines, the 2-dose vaccines, and 1 booster, and she says we're like at booster number 5 or something now. Booster number 4.
4. I've had 4. And the 5th is coming soon, I guess.
And the question is, since I only had 1 booster,
right?
Does it make sense to jump to the 5th one without doing the ones in between? Does it matter? Is it for a completely different strain? Is it just they've learned stuff?
Yes. All of the yes. It's yes, Bill, for all of the above. So your next one will be this new one for the new strain, right?
Right.
If you want to go there, right?
And can they identify whether your strain's new, old, whatever? Do they have a sense of that?
Both doctors that I saw, because I saw 2 different separate days, and no, this is what we're going to have to get used to, as they said, right? This is the strain now, and it is what it is, guys.
And what were your symptoms? Were they
Yes, my symptoms: coughing, constant coughing.
Yeah,
could not. Get the tickle.
Yep.
Sore throat. The nose, a little.
Yep.
Sometimes a little runny. snotty, right? Snot, right? A little bit like
bad,
that,
right? Like just
it wasn't bad. Oh, and I did, Ed. Because I'm thinking about Ed here.
Yeah.
Muscle aches a little bit, right? Get a little sore, right?
Did you have fever? Like for real?
You know what? I had a low grade fever.
Okay, me too.
Okay.
So we had the same strain, I think.
So again,
Exactly.
in a different period of time of our lives, this would be fluish. You would just feel like you're under the weather. You would there would be no real context for it, and you wouldn't really, it wouldn't have a name. It would just be you're kind of blah, and maybe you'd go to a doctor and maybe they'd give you antibiotics or something.
The question I have is how, the first time I ever had it was a month ago. It was very light, and there was some like tiredness afterwards. There still is, and it messed up my routine, and I feel jet lagged and things like that, a little unfocused. But would it have been that easy if I hadn't had any vaccines? I don't know.
Ooh.
And I mean, I like to believe the answer to that is no.
Yeah,
I like to believe that the vaccines, served a purpose and
trained your immune system. I mean, it is a thing. There is a thing called a vaccine.
And it's like, the one thing about the vaccine is, I'm extremely cynical about a lot of medication stuff. Like particularly you've had I've had a cardiac incident, and they're always like wanting you to sort of, over something, and if the alternative is you drop dead, I suppose they're not giving you bad advice. But sometimes that's not how it works to me. Like sometimes if you make changes in your life, from a lifestyle standpoint, from a diet standpoint, that kind of thing, and you minimize, the risk, the rest of this stuff is just kind of hedging your bets, and the one thing about the COVID is that at least we didn't pay for it. Like the company got paid, but not by us. So at least there's that,
Right.
I mean, to me, that's a plus side of something.
I recently learned that vaccine, although I don't know exactly what it was translated from, is French for cow. There's something related to cow, and it has to do with smallpox, because they were trying to figure out smallpox, and I mean a long time ago, where they didn't have photographs that long ago, and apparently the medical establishment they still take a lot of guesses. They don't know a lot of stuff still. They didn't know a lot in those days, but they knew that milkmaids weren't getting smallpox at the same rate that normal people, like they really weren't getting it. Milkmaids, like girls that milked cows. And it's because the girls that milked the cows had picked up an immunity from the cowpox or whatever it was.
Wow.
And that had made them immune to smallpox. And so they're like, what if we, and they're like, first people get that vaccine. What if we take part of the cow and we'll give it, or whatever.
Why don't you like curb the feral cat thing and get a couple of cows?
That's right. Cat pox. I've got cat pox going on here. I haven't been sick in a long time except for this COVID.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Frank Antorno is joining us.
Oh, Frank. Where is he?
He's there.
There he is.
Is he frozen?
That was like a Superman pose. That was almost like,
He's frozen. There you go. How you doing, Frank Antorno?
Hey, fellas, how are you?
Hi, Frank.
Good. I always get worried when people go,
yeah.
The fake freeze,
Well, that's crazy, Ed.
What's that? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good. Look, there you go, Bill.
It's not fake.
This is David talking about the coronavirus. He goes like this, right? It's like he's showing what the virus looks like. These are the coronas.
Right.
No.
So Bill Nolan, save us from ourselves. Do a song for us.
Exactly. Please, Bill.
So last week, I forget what happened last week, but I was just super freaking busy, and I had like a week or so ago, got to see Steve Earle, one of my absolute favorite musicians, playing in Norwalk, which was crazy.
Right. Wow.
Playing at the Wall Street Theater,
That's very
which
cool.
is a pretty cool little venue in its own way. So last week I was like wall to wall Steve Earle, but this week not so much wall to wall. I remember holding on to you all them long and lonely nights I put you through. Somewhere in there, I'm sure I made you cry, but I can't remember if we said goodbye. But I recall all of them nights down in Mexico. One place I may never go in my life again. Was I just off somewhere, or maybe just too high? But I can't remember if we said goodbye. I only miss you every now and then. Like the soft wind blowing up from the Caribbean. Most Novembers I break down and cry, but I can't remember if we said goodbye. But I recall all of them nights down in Mexico. One place I may never go in my life again. Was I just somewhere, maybe just too high? And I can't remember if we said goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Man,
very nice, very nice.
I love that guy. So like Steve Earle, you know, like Steve Earle is he's the descendant of Jerry Jeff Walker and Townes Van Zandt and all the great Texas singer songwriters kind of thing. And the first time I ever saw him, he had been in jail. I mean, he has like bona fides that far exceed a lot of people who think they're rock and roll. I mean, this guy lived like James Taylor, actually, like Looney Bin and Junkie, like whatever. So, he went to prison, and so I saw him when he was out on the tour, when he had gotten out of the joint, and he was one of those rare individuals who got fat in prison, like it was strange, he must have liked the food. I don't know, but he came out, he played the bottom line, and it was an acoustic kind of thing. And I just remember at the moment in time, like at that moment in time, I was like hook, line, sinker. I was like lifer, anything he did from there on in, I was just crazed for him. And it made me question like Steely Dan, like I sat there and I'm listening to these 4-chord songs, and I was, and I was pretty much like at that moment in time, I was kind of coming from a different, more complex place. But he literally changed just the way I looked at everything, and gave me that, that sense of what you got when you heard Chuck Berry, Chuck Berry's got 3 chords, but the most brilliant lyrics. And sorry, Frank.
We lost Frank. I think he was having internet issues. I think that.
But it's like it can be done. I mean, Dylan. Like there's poetry in this stuff, and truth, and and it doesn't have to be super complex to be complex. You know, it
right.
Musically, emotional. If it goes complex emotionally, then to me, you know, that ticks one of the boxes big time.
Music is weird that way. You know, what will resonate with groups of people and individuals. You know, I was the same way. I was listening to a lot of, like, for a long time, a lot of technical, like Spyro Gyra and Weather Report and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's music. Because there's so many notes, and it's so, you know, you go from that chord to that chord, you modulate so many times you can't even tell what's happening. That's not necessarily good songwriting.
Right. Well, and sometimes it's just fussy for fussiness sake. You know, like sometimes it doesn't advance the emotion and the story. And I just finished a book. And now I'm going to fuck up because I'm not going to remember the name.
Reading or writing? You were writing or reading?
Reading.
Reading.
I wish I just finished a book like that. I was writing. That would be great. You know, it's a gothic tale about how a guy in a trailer park in Pennsylvania kills millions of. No, anyway. But this book is about the Brill Building, basically the songwriters of the day. You know, Carole King, Jerry Goffin, Bacharach and David, you know, like the greatest songwriters, Doc Pomus and Mort Schulman, you know, Lieber and Stoller, you know, these guys were, you know, and it was a book, you know, I'm a sponge for a lot of this stuff, but this book was so friggin' good that it was one of those kind of books where you just, you know, it's 4:00 in the morning and you're like, you know what? I could sit in the toilet for 20 minutes here and just read a little more of this before I go back to bed. You know, it's like, and I'm not even going to the bathroom. You know, it's like, you know, and just the
it's
craft.
That good. You don't have to be taking a dump to read it. I got it.
Hey, actually, I've lost my guitar. Oh no, I haven't.
Uh-oh.
No, you're there.
I hit no, but I mean, it was just, and a lot of the stuff I didn't know. And honestly, I read up on this stuff all the time, you know, so there's a lot of stuff I do know, but there's always stuff you don't know. And it's like, it's fun. Like the moment at which when the Beatles hit and suddenly the bar was different because suddenly people were writing their own songs. You know, Brian Jones got kicked out of the Rolling Stones, the band he started, because he wasn't a songwriter. And Andrew Loog Oldham decided Richards and Jagger can write songs. And so that's where we're going, because the Beatles did that, you know?
Right.
I mean, they did that. And, like, you know, you can always think that they're like old farts or whatever.
And Bill, I mean, come on now. And then Brian drowning in the swimming pool.
Right.
I mean, come on.
I don't know.
I know.
I don't know. You know, all I know is that Keith Moon could take a Rolls Royce into a swimming pool and nobody drowned.
Exactly.
That's all I know.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's just the craft of songwriting, you know, it's just such an interesting thing. And those songs from that period of time, I'm sorry, I like a song with a bridge, you know, like if you got a bridge, I like a bridge. I like a song that tells a story. I like a song that evokes either a moment in time or something, you know. I don't, you know, you take the greatest dance songs that Earth, Wind, and Fire ever wrote, and they still take you on a journey, you know, and they're not just that for that sake, you know, like it's something else, you know.
Right.
But anyway, I'm such an asshole. I don't remember the name of this book. Something in the air or something in the air or something. But it's about the Brill Building, and I bet if you Googled like Brill Building books or something, it'll come up. And it's fascinating. It's just incredible, you know, how good it is. But
many pages. Is it pretty thick?
No. It's like 200 in the paperback. It's like 260. Because I looked at that because it was because I went into reading the appendix and everything else because I just couldn't get enough of this book. I just wanted to learn more things, you know, and you know, interesting stuff. You know, Burt Bacharach was Marlene Dietrich's musical director. You know, like shit.
Wow, really?
Okay.
Yeah. You know, like
wow.
And you know, people, you know, all the people that passed on songs, like they passed on them. You know, they didn't want to do them.
I love that kind of stuff. You know,
so it's like, you know, it ends up close to you. You know, Bacharach, you know, ends up in Karen Carpenter's lap, but the people passed on it, you know.
Right.
You know, the association passed on MacArthur Park, you know, like stuff like that. You know, it's like, who knows? You're Googling, right, Ed? Are you Googling?
Yeah, always magic in the air.
He's all in, right? He's going.
That's it. Always magic in the air. That was it.
Oh, there you go.
That was it. $13, and boys and girls, for $13, that is a incredible education in what I think are the greatest period of songwriting. You know, obviously, you know, the Beatles. I mean, everybody. There's so many great songwriters, but to put all those folks in basically two buildings in New York, you know, that's pretty freaking crazy. You know, and Lieber Stoller, who wouldn't play ball with Colonel Tom Parker, and said, "Fuck this, we're not going to write songs for Elvis and have him take the writing credits." Fuck
right.
You know. Oh man, it's a great book.
All right, do another song. Do another one.
Oh, I can't do them. I can only talk shit. I can't.
All right, talk another song.
I can't actually play anything.
Make it up.
Okay, here's a song by. I think this was written by Richard Thompson and Tim Finn, Neil Finn from Crowded House's brother. And he was also in Split Ends. You and I, tempted by the promise of a different life. Time has fled. There's a constant battle running through my head. I don't know what to do, 'cause I still believe. After all the foolish things you put me through, I could always make a start on something new. And I've always been a man who's open to persuasion. Blind romance, there'll be no half measures given half a chance. But we never learn, trusting in the fire while the cruel flame burns. We need to rebuild what was never there. After all foolish things you put me through, I could always make a start at something new. And I'll always be a man who's open to persuasion. And it's written in my heart, so that everyone can see it. And it's written in my soul. After all, I still believe it. I still believe it. Still believe it. Don't know what to do, 'cause I still believe. After all the foolish things we've been through, I could always make a start on something new. Always be a man who's open to persuasion. Persuasion. I still believe it. I still believe it. Oh, thank you.
All right.
It's such a
Bill. That was beautiful, man. We're talking about the deep cuts. That's
true.
Yeah.
So I have a gig on Saturday at a place that I've played with other people, but I've never played solo.
Yeah,
and it will be nameless right now. We'll talk about it next week, perhaps.
A secret gig.
But there was a lot of like, I mean, I'll put out marketing stuff for it, but there was a lot of like wanted pictures, wanted a bio, wanted all this stuff. It's a freaking bar gig, okay? You know, like
exactly.
And it's just funny to me, you know, like, and on my bio thing, I put in like, you know, I'm prone to deep cuts and classic interpretations.
Exactly.
You know, that's right.
Yeah.
Which is a phrase that a friend of mine, a guy named Rich Pagano, great drummer, who's in the band of Fab Four and is just a great artist on his own right. But he gave me that one. I stole it from him. He didn't give it to me. I stole it. Deep cuts and classic interpretations.
There you
go. What a great way to say, like, you know, like classic rock or something, like classic interpretations.
Yes.
It's good.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Beautiful.
I've told my brill building story, I'm pretty sure, on the air. I don't know if you guys were on the air when I told that story, but I used to, when I first moved to New York, I wanted to be in television in the worst possible way, and I'd done some TV and film stuff. I came out of film school in Boulder, and I really wanted to work at Broadway Video, which is Lorne Michaels' Edit House. Yep. They do a lot of Saturday Night Live stuff, and they've gone on to do a lot of things, Broadway Video. And they're in the Brill Building, right? And they have a floor in the Brill Building. They always have. And and
that's right in Times Square, right? It's sort of in the middle of Times Square?
North of Times Square. It's north. It's on Broadway, just north of Times Square. Yeah, exactly. Right. And I'm so I had my suit on, my nice suit, whatever, and I went in and I was looking for anything. Like I was looking for, I'll take a tape op job. I'll take I'll answer phone. I don't care, whatever. And so I was all excited, and I get there for the interview, and the elevator opens, and I'm out, and there's Broadway Video and the logo, and you could just feel the energy in the place and all that. And the woman that I was going to meet with, her name was Kathar Sharif. Fuck you, Kathar Sharif. All right. So wow. Kathar Sharif. Oh yeah. I had the worst of it. She leaves me sitting there for a long time. Then she comes out and she goes, I don't have time to interview. I don't have time for this bullshit. You know, whatever. You're going to have to come back another day. And I'm going to lunch right now, and I'll come back in an hour. And if you want to wait, you can wait. And I don't know if I'll have time to see you and whatever. And I was like, I'll wait. Right. So she leaves. That's exactly what it was like. And she leaves. She comes back an hour later and she goes, okay, you're still here. Fine. Come on in. So I told her about that. She didn't give a damn. Like she was just wasting my time. Right. And like, she just it didn't matter. It wasn't me. You know, it was just a kid in a suit. I'm 21 years old, whatever, just out of school. And she's like, I don't know. They had a job outline and whatever. She just didn't take the time. I don't have time to buy. So I leave, and I'm mad. I'm mad. I'm not like disappointed. I'm mad. I'm like, it's her. She's keeping me away from my dream job, my career, Right. So, so I get in the elevator, and there's two guys in the elevator. They're coming down, right? And I'm going down. And if I'm not mistaken, they were on the 10th floor of the Brill Building. And the guys are coming down, and Paul Simon's office is upstairs in the Brill Building, right? So here comes these two guys, and they're cursing up a storm. They're like, motherfucker, who quits the day before the tour goes out? Like, what the fuck are we going to do now? Where are we going to find a guy who knows how to mix monitors? And I had mixed monitors before on stages. Like, I knew what that was. And I had done, that's the guy, for those of you who don't know, that's the guy who's like, when the guitar player goes, right, like that, you got to pick up on that before they pick up on it. You've adjusted them.
It's a monstrously important job.
You got it, right? Right. And so they look at me and they go, kid, do you know how to mix monitors? And I go, yeah. And they go, do you? I go, yeah. I worked at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, and I mixed monitors on the stage during the concerts. And they're like, do you want to go out with Paul Simon on the Graceland tour tomorrow? And I was like, taken aback by the question. I was like, and I said, I just moved to New York, and I was looking for a Joe. It's just interviewing for it. They're like, I forget it. They get off the elevator and that's it. It's like I could have said,
wouldn't you like to play that one over again?
I could have grabbed them by the collar and been like, yes, I'm not letting go until you hire me.
Oh my God.
But I'm like, I just signed a lease for 2 years.
Right. Understand.
In my apartment and I got this suit
but
on.
you know, it's like the crazy thing is you had the requisite skills.
I knew how to do it enough and I was there. You know, they needed a guy.
Right.
So they made a phone call and got a guy, you know, but
oh wow.
Yeah, I was
story.
offered at one point, you know, from these friends of mine who had a band, and they asked me if I wanted to be the guitar tech, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
You were insulted, right?
You know, no, because it's like my least favorite part of like having a guitar is changing strings and the pressure. And I know that they have much better tuners now than what I use, and you know, I know that it's, but that's the worst gig of all time, if you ask me. You know,
except you're on the tour and you're meeting everybody, and you're gonna. There are stories about, I can't think of who it is now, but there are stories about people who are like, I was John Mayer's guitar tech, and now I'm the lead singer.
I told that story actually. I told the story because it was a kid that, I don't know, Dave, if you would know these people like Mindy Green and Chuck Green. They were in Greenwich, but anyway, Mindy's sister's boyfriend or husband, I'm not sure, was Jeff Beck's guitar tech. So that got us tickets to see him at the Capitol Theater not so long ago, like maybe 5 years, you know, whatever. When he had this cool band that was kind of borderline, like there was like hip hop in it and there was other stuff in it. It was like very cool. But he was the guitar tech for Jeff fucking Beck, which to me is just, you know, this is a guy that doesn't play a note that isn't whammy barred almost at all. So it's all, and you're playing a Fender, and it's like it's all bending. You know, it's just like
he plays it like a theremin. He plays it like a theremin. Like
it is kind of like a theremin, and then he went from that to John Mayer. And, I believe he's now John Mayer's guy, and John Mayer has something like 5,000 guitars, like something like that.
Oh yeah,
you know, like crazy amount of guitars.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
but that's pressure, boy. That's like, you know, that's crazy ass pressure. You know, particularly like Jeff Beck. I mean, that's just like, hey, I'm tuning Stradivarius. You know, like I'm tuning, you know, Isaac Perlman. You know, friggin', you know, it's like. Let me, you know,
that's pretty good, because you get to hang and you get to meet the people and you get to know everybody on the tour, like everybody, you know.
And you're confident enough in your abilities, and you don't, like, you know. To me, it's like, you know, even to this day, how many times I've strung guitars, you know, thousands of times, I'm sure. And it's like, even today, every time I do it, it's like I'm doing it for the first time. I'm always thinking I could do it better than the last time I did it. Like, what am I fucking up here? And generally, I'm not fucking up as much as I used to, but it's not fun. That's like the worst. You know, my friend Michael Muggeridge, he changes his strings like after every gig. That's like,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you have like James Jamerson, the great bass player who never changed his string.
Ever, yeah.
No, because the older, they got to be funky.
Yeah.
They gotta, you know what I'm saying? They gotta feel funky, smell funky.
Whatever it is, it's got to be funky.
I played with a bass player the other night, and I could have sworn I overheard him say, "I've never changed my strings ever." Like it never ever. It was a bass player by the name of Yale. Do you know him?
I don't know.
He's around the Connecticut scene. I played he was on a pickup gig that I was playing, and his name is Yale. I think it's Yele. And a really nice guy, older guy, great player, super player. And the guitar player is literally breaking. She's one of those guys break strings 4 times a show. Like he's just so like eating on the thing. And I was playing it at OG Social and in
I saw some video from that. Yes.
Yeah, and that guy Yale, I heard him talking to the drummer. And he said, "Yeah, I've never changed these strings. Like I've had these strings on here for 48 years." I was like, just overhearing that, you know.
I think that James Jamerson set the bar for the allowance of that. You know, I think that people, you know, if it's okay for James Jamerson, who the fuck are you? You know,
right. I have never cut my hair. I have never cut my nails right now.
Oh boy.
Pretty wild. All right, do another one, Bill.
Okay. So are we a little light on talent here tonight?
I don't know. No, so Frank Antorno is light on the internet connection. I think he's trying to get it. He's been in and out a few times in the green room.
That's what she said.
But you know, exactly. To be honest with you, yeah, nobody's getting pregnant in the JMTV green room. Believe me. From their house, maybe they are.
You're in the green room. You're just sniffing an 8-ball off a stripper's boobs. That's pretty much the way that's how it goes down in the green room at the.
I don't know. I'm super happy to just be on the show. Like I'm happy when it's just the three of us chickens hanging out.
I mean, it's funny. I was downstairs and my wife goes, "There's no show tonight," and I go like, "I'm just getting my tequila,"
Right? Look.
Don't judge me,
Exactly.
Hello, one and all. Was it you I used to know? Can't you hear me call? On this old ham radio, all I've got to say, I'm alive and feeling fine, and you come my way. You can share my poison wine, no marigolds to the promised land. There's a hole in the ground where they used to grow. Everyone left on the Rio Grande is the king of the world, as far as I know. I don't want your bread, I don't need your helping hand. I can't be no savage, I can't be no highwayman. Show me where you are, you and I will spend this day driving in my car through the roads of Santa Fe. No marigolds in the promised land. There's a hole in the ground where they used to grow. Everyone left on the Rio Grande is the king of the world, as far as I know. Yeah, this is fun. I'm reading last year's papers, although I don't know why. Assassins, cons, and rapers might as well die. If you come around, no more pain and no regrets. Watch the sun go brown, smoking cobalt cigarettes. There's no need to hide, taking things the easy way. If I stay outside, I might live till Saturday. No marigolds in the promised land. There's a hole in the ground where they used to go. Anyone left in the Rio Grande is the king of the world, as far as I know.
Oh my God. So It's amazing what you can do with 745 chords, you know?
Bill, I've heard you play this before and I love it, man. And you are just picking your ass off, man.
Crazy.
Dave, I love you, brother. And,
I'm serious, man. I mean, I said, Bill is busy right now.
That's busy. Okay, wait a sec. So when you learn that song, when you sit down with a Steely Dan tune, and it's crazy like they are, how do you do it? Do you have a chart? Do you have
I start, there's a certain period of that band's existence that I really connect with.
Before Gaucho.
it's more early, and it's honestly it's before Asia.
Right.
It's a period of time, and I was driving around and my trusty iPod comes up and like the song Rose Darling comes up from Katy Lied, and like Katy Lied is like their Rubber Soul.
Yeah.
And then what comes after that is like Royal Scam, which is kind of their Revolver. Like it's kind of like that stage and thing. And the songs were just, yes, it's true. The instrumental portion of that song certainly is whacked out. And, he plays like, I think like a little synth solo there, like the intervals are just like off their charts, it's like freaking crazy. And it sounds a little funny when you're just playing it. It just sounds like fucking chords, Jesus Christ, but that's like a section of a song, whereas the rest of the song, I won't say it's conventional, but it's a song. It's a song with chords, and so I approach it like I approach anything else. I sort of listen to it. I sort of figure it out. I do have like one of the greatest. I have a pair of amazing, and for you kids out there, you won't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I have 2 folio books of Steely Dan,
wow.
Books like in the old days, I have like a collection of folio books that I just love, because if they were done with care and if the person was putting them together, the chords are fucking right on, which is much more than what you often get online. Like online, a lot of times it's like, okay, that's great. That's the stick that the scarecrow is on, but that doesn't tell you what's going on here. Like you need to then make it right. And for that, you need to be a musician of some sort and have an ear, like, I don't know if I'm a musician of some sort, but I do have an ear. I can hear certain things. And it's like, I don't even know what I'm hearing, but I just know I'm hearing something. Dave!
We lost Dave.
Oh my God.
Dave, wherefore art thou, Dave?
Dave, wherefore art thou?
He'll be back.
But softly through yonder light, where goes Dave? Oh, hard hearts, oh cruel men of Rome, knew you not, Dave?
Wow.
Many a time and oft did you climb to the battlements, yea, to the chimney chops, and there you sat in great
expectation. I'm
expectation.
impressed.
Oh no, I can do a couple of bits from Hamlet. Oh no, Macbeth. I'm sorry. But anyway.
Wow. The worst part is that now you have to do it over because he missed the whole thing.
I know. What? I don't know why. Why did I leave?
I don't know.
Well, you can only ask yourself that question. Why did you leave?
Bill, I don't know, but I was
It
all
happens.
into the story. Well,
It happens. Sometimes your internet connection just goes, nope.
Yeah.
Oh no. So
He's quoting Shakespeare in your name. Unbelievable.
I'll rewind, Dave.
Okay.
Ross turn me on, dead man. I buried Paul. There you go.
Exactly.
Very good.
Thank you.
But anyway, Ed was asking how I prepared for Steely Dan stuff, and there's just a certain period of time of their stuff where it was, not conventional in the true sense of that word, but conventional by Steely Dan terms,
Right.
Okay.
And
you start with some sort of chord chart, and then how do you figure the chords out for the guitar? You go to
I start with just fucking around with it,
okay.
and then I get to chord charts. But again, as I don't know if you missed this, Dave, but I told Ed I have a collection of folio books.
Yes,
like
I caught that.
Old school.
Yes. Yes.
And
sure.
and there's one that is it's a pair. It's actually, and it takes you up to, I mean, maybe it takes you to Royal Scam, and that's it. Which for me, if they had ended there, I would have been okay too. They did marvelous things afterwards, but if that's as far as, I never got to Jimi Hendrix's 4th album or Jethro Tull's 4th album, or there's a lot of bands where I was okay with where they were there, and then what they did afterwards, I didn't really care that much. So I mean, to me, but this book, it has what they call the mu chord, which I think, Ed, is probably a 9th. It's playing a F sharp over the E, so it's like, and they 9. Basically in this book, they rightfully say that like Ricky, don't lose that number. I hear you. That's okay. It's like what they call the mu chord, and yes, you can substitute it for basically any major chord that Steely Dan does, and it gives it that modality that leads you. It was before they had convinced themselves they were jazz players, which they're not, but it was at that time when the modality really just opened up the sound of it and made it sound modal, and what everybody loved with the Paul Butterfield East West album, where suddenly they got into Eastern harmonies and Eastern kind of things, and that the mu chord is that. I mean, that whole song is like, it's like, which is really just a C, D, E, but it's what's better when you do.
Yeah, so it's the root. I looked it up. It's the root and the 2 and the 3, the major third.
Yep.
And the 5th, but it's got that 2 in there. It's got that.
Yeah. The 2 is what makes it what it is,
Yeah.
And
Yep.
What I loved about this thing is, like, the spouting comes out here, and you're actually like, you're looking into it, which is good. Which, by the way, people, please read that book. That book is so good.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, Steely Dan. I've told this story as well. I was in a rehearsal with a drummer. It was with a horn band, and the drummer leaned over to me. He didn't want to embarrass me in front of the band. We were learning peg, right? And he says, so on that chord, on that whatever measure, what? And I got a chart, but I'm not reading the chart. I'm doing it out of my head, and that's how I work. And so he goes, so on that, measure the 42. Where are you playing the dominant 7? On the top or the bottom? On the top or the bottom? And I was like, oh God, I have no idea what he's talking about. I know he's speaking English, but I don't know what he's saying. And then I went, wait, I could figure this out. So I'm like, this is the 7, the dominant 7. Oh, I'm playing it with my pinky on the top. He says, you're supposed to play it on the bottom. And I was like, so I do the other voicing. I'm like, and I was like, holy shit, that's right. And he's like, yeah, that's right. It's not right the way you did it.
That honestly, the voicings, the inversions, it's like I rely heavily on my friend Ed Wright, who is a brilliant, Hart School of Music, musician, classical guitarist who lowered himself to play bass on all of like the kooky bands that we had together. But it's like, I will talk to him about something and I'll just say, Ed, I'm just not understanding this. And it could be anything from Reverend Gary Davis to Bach, because he's versed in any of that, and he can read all of that. And then you just, he plays it up here, and you're like, oh shit, and you play it up there, and suddenly all the voicings are there, and all of the stuff where you're going like, how the hell do I get the E flat? Like, how do I get to that? Like, and it's like, no, it's up here.
Yeah, but a lot of those guys don't know why it works. They know, like, the people playing the classical music that, Mozart or Beethoven or Chopin wrote, they don't know why it's good. They just know that it's good, and they know how to deliver the notes properly. And they're not making choices about which chord am I playing. You and I are doing that.
Right.
We're like doing what jazz guys do, which is, oh, it's this chord, so I could play it this way, this way, this way. And you see jazz guys on the guitar, they're like, do, 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 do. They're playing the chords all the way up and down the neck in different, you know, you could play it in different, what's the word? The shape, different
positions, shapes. You know, shapes, different,
So you could play G in the E shape, but you play it here, and you can play.
It's basically inversions, is what they call them. You know,
right. And so, and I don't know where I picked that up. Like I just picked that up practicing. So like,
but it's also where you picked it up is you picked it up because you have ears.
Yeah,
and
right.
You listen
and
you hear it, and if it doesn't sound right, you know it has to be a different way. You know,
right. You know, the mu chord for a classical musician is no big deal because it's like, give me a five lines, and it's this one, this one, this one, and this one. That's the chord, and they're like this. You know, that's.
But you won't find it often in classical music, though. Not that often.
There you go. Right, right.
You know, but this is another reference to that freaking book, which again, if I'm overselling it, I'm not. It's so fucking good. But in it, Burt Bacharach is talking about his music. So Burt Bacharach is a guy who his music is complex beyond all belief in terms of time signatures, Dave. You know, like, you know, it's like 3/4 to 4/4 to 6/8 to something else. You know, do you know the way to San Jose? Like that kind of stuff. Like you just sit there and you just go like, and he explains in this book, he just explains it isn't complex or weird to me. That's how I hear it. You know, that's how I process it. And, you know, Hal David would write the lyrics and he would write the music. And whether he was working with Harold Bear Sager or whether he's working with Elvis Costello or no matter who the fuck he's working with, that's how he processed it. And I just think that's brilliant and lovely and like so great. You know, it's just and
how it was done. It was the technology of the day. And I'm going to write a book called The Beatles Ruined It for Everybody because the Beatles, right? So the Beatles were the first ones, as you said earlier, that were like, we write our songs, we sing our songs, we play our song, we do everything. We write the words, we write the lyrics, we all this stuff. And thank God they had their producer who had some background in and Paul had interest in that too. Like no, I don't want to just use some boring chord. I want to use some Steely Dan chord. Like, you know, they were playing some odd.
And he also, you know, George Martin also had a background in novelty records. You know, the Goon Show and that kind of stuff. And you know, that informs a lot of what they're doing because they were, you know, the piccolo trumpet or whatever, you know, like the stuff they're bringing into this stuff is something. You know, here's a funny one, and Dave, you'll enjoy this because Jay Payne, who is we've talked about him before. Jay is a friend of ours who moved to England, married a British woman, worked at university, plays in these funny, like they're not soca bands, they're kind of African bands. He plays bass in these African bands, and he's a brilliant musician. He was a drummer when he was here, but he's a great guitarist. He's a great bass player. All of the above. But we were talking, somebody posted a video of the Stones playing The Last Time on Ed Sullivan. So like everybody would always think like, you know, like The Last Time is like, that's kind of the riff. But then when you see Brian Jones playing it on Sullivan, he's playing like, he's playing it up the neck. And then Jay and I went into this long, like, sort of discourse with each other about, it looks like he's doing that. Is he hammering that on or doing what, you know, and we're just like discussing it based on this kind of rudimentary, you know, kind of crude video. But it's like, even for a song you think you know, there's always something. And the beauty of the 60s for me is just like, they just did shit that was like weird, you know, like, and it wasn't weird like they're adding like a flat 5 over a major 9 or something. You know, they're just like, the riff is weird, you know, or like in some cases they leave shit in that, you know. I just saw the video again of Mary Clayton talking about doing the vocal for Gimme Shelter for the Stones. And, you know, they called her up in the middle of the night. Her hair was in curlers. She was in a robe and she showed up and laid down this iconic freaking vocal. And it might be from that movie 20 Feet from Stardom. It might be from that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great movie. But she comes there and she does the thing and says, "Oh, let me do one more." And she does one more, and her voice is breaking in all the right places, and everything is like freaking crazy. But it's like that just doesn't happen anymore. They don't do that.
What I'm interested to hear your opinion on is then came along the Wrecking Crew, right? So then you had, and of course that's not.
Well, they were there at that time. I mean, they were already established then.
But not just the Wrecking Crew, but like you'd go to a studio. Like Wilson Pickett showed up at Stax in Memphis. Memphis, yeah, and he walked in the door and he had his band. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe he didn't have his band. And they went, yeah, no. We're not. The producer was like, we're not paying for your band to screw up the ruin 7,000 feet of tape that costs money. We're going to have our house band play your song for you. Right. And then, Steve Cropper and Donald Dunn and whatever, they made up all those parts. And
there was more, the stuff that was done, in Memphis and Muscle Shoals and that stuff. Yep. You went down there for those guys.
Yes, you got it.
The Wrecking Crew was much more often, the Monkees wanted to play their own instruments and they couldn't.
Right.
And they could barely sing in the early days.
Or they couldn't fast enough because studio time was expensive. I remember
they couldn't.
Right.
They couldn't.
And so they would bring in Carol Kay and she would be like, and they'd be like, just play bum, 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 bum. And she'd be like, that shit, I'm not going to play that. I'm going to go bum, 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 bum.
Well,
I'm going to play something amazing.
The Monkees would come in and they're doing the song Valerie, and they have this guy, I think it was Louis Shelton played on that, who was the same guy who played on Summer Breeze for Seals and Crofts and produced that. Right. And he played the guitar stuff on Lowdown for Boz Scaggs. And he plays this crazy ass arpeggiated fucking nutty thing. And Mike Nesmith could not play that. He could stay there for 20 years and he couldn't play that.
Right, but when they went out on tour, he played some version of that, on tour.
Yes, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have talent. It doesn't mean and in those days, it was all serving the song, really. The producers weren't really trying to establish their own rep, maybe with the exception of guys like Phil Spector or something like that. But they're basically serving the songs, and they're trying to make the songs as good as they can possibly be. And nobody was happy with that. But again, the Beatles blew that up. They blew it up and suddenly, it's like, fuck you. We want to play. Like, look, they're doing it and they sell records. But
I saw
the Wrecking Crew was definitely, they were not, it wasn't like a surprise that
who's
you weren't
the
playing on
guitar player guy, the famous guitar player guy from the Wrecking Crew?
Well, I mean, there's Glenn Campbell, there's Tommy Tedesco, who was
Tommy Tedesco. That's what I'm thinking.
Tommy Tedesco is one of the greatest.
I saw things where they were playing in like a booth. They had like a sound. They all played at the same time, so they had they were going to stereo, and they go to multi-track. I don't know if they were doing multi-track in those days, but I guess they were.
Well, they were bouncing tracks down.
Right. And so they needed separation. They were really going for separation instead of room sound. And I saw something where the producer said to him something like, "Could you play like a Spanish guitar?" And he's like, "Oh, I brought my mandolin. I'm going to play mandolin on that, whatever." And they're like, "Sure." And he reaches down here, whatever, and then he pulls it out. Let's Scar, ready to go. He just played it on his guitar. He only had one instrument.
Well, I know
it different.
I know I've mentioned this before, but Tommy Tedesco, and by the way, his son was the one who helped push through the movie, the documentary about the Wrecking Crew, which was like awesome. I was like I contributed money to that thing early, and it was like, they followed up on the people, they were super good with that, and like they gave me the advanced copy I was supposed to get. They like all that was great. Yeah. But Tommy Tedesco had a column in Guitar Player magazine, and it was fucking great. It was like he has a session and he talks about, he's a professional. This is like, boys and girls, this is what a professional musician does. Right. So he shows up like uber prepared. He shows up, with the guitar, with the bouzouki, with the freaking balalaika, with the freaking, he shows up with all this stuff. And then when they ask him to do something, he fucking does it. And the beauty of those days and the, like Muscle Shoals and Memphis, they were all about like the integrity of a band and like they were in a groove together and, they really functioned more as a band. Right. Whereas the Wrecking Crew to me functioned more as a tool. They were like a resource, and they were chameleons. They would do whatever you wanted. I mean, Leon Russell, who has one of the most distinctive piano styles when he's playing like Leon Russell, which is that kind of octave, all of that octavey stuff that he does. Well, he's the piano player on Strangers in the Night. Like that's him, and it's like he tables whatever it is that is the Leon Russell thing of this stuff, but he brings the brilliance of Leon Russell. He brings the musicality of Leon Russell, he brings that, but he doesn't bring any preconceived notion of how you play the piano. And when he showed up there from Oklahoma, he knocked the acoustic piano guy out of that chair like immediately, and that guy went to like electric piano, and like Leon had the acoustic piano stuff, and it's like that says volumes, because these guys were, Glenn Campbell, Carol Kay, all of them, they're just insanely good musicians.
Exactly. So the industry is like, oh yeah, you write your own music, you do the lyrics, you do everything, but we'll handle the actual putting it all together. They still had that going on.
Well, some of that is the time period, because they weren't wrong. They were wrong if you happened to be the guy that wanted to play on your own record and you had written the stuff.
Studio time. I was in the television studio business when I was younger, and I'm talking about analog tape where you were running.
Sure.
We had 17. We were a New York-based teleproduction facility, and we had 17 one-inch recorders. They were $80,000 a piece. And we had 17 of them. So if you were doing a show with 4 cameras, you were running through $2,000 worth of tape, and it was a $10,000 shoot, which doesn't sound like a lot of money, but
but it was in those days.
Back then
it was the 80s, and so it's like you can't afford to have somebody flub their lines or I played the wrong note. Can we just do that again? It's like, yeah, for $500 we could do it again.
Well, a lot of it's also too a lot of the Wrecking Crew stuff. They didn't write the songs. The Monkees didn't write the songs at that. It was Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart. It was Goffin and King. Pleasant Valley Sunday. It was like
right.
They didn't really write the songs, so the ownership was a little specious. Like it wasn't quite. It's not like the same thing where you walk in there and you wrote "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and you're not going to let a bunch of guys from Abbey Road play this, because plus. You have played as a group, played. You weren't put together by a TV executive.
They were their own Wrecking Crew.
Played for, 3 years as a group, and in the grueling world of Hamburg, you know how to, it's kind of like there's some bands like the Rascals, Los Lobos, the Beatles, they cut their teeth on playing as a band and stayed together for years, relatively speaking, the Beatles weren't together that long, but they were like 8 years, 9 years.
And if you're playing a lot over that period, if you're playing every day, that's a lot.
That's what
they had George Harrison. They had some good guys,
And there's a case. I always think, like, if you want to have the worst position on the world, other than center on a Greek football team, it's like fucking being George Harrison in the Beatles, where you have to beg to have your stuff in there.
Like, shut up, George. Nobody wants to hear your shit.
It's not good enough, George. We don't really want that one, And then he puts out his first solo album, which outsold any of their solo albums. All Things Must Pass was huge.
I'd love to know what would the Beatles have been like with, the drummer from The Who, or instead of George Harrison, they got, Pete Townsend, or they got somebody else.
Well, I think, and don't take this the wrong way, Dave, but I think that the drummer in that equation, because they had, their first drummer in their, they had, besides Pete Best, they had like Alan White played on some stuff, and Alan White's a friggin' player.
Yeah.
Alan White's like, if he had been in it, it would have been slightly different. But how can you knock the perfection? Nobody swings like Ringo. Ringo freaking swings.
Right.
I didn't even know when I'm looking at it in 1964, but when I'm seeing him hitting those rides and just doing this stuff, it's just like, God damn, that's swinging,
Yeah, and a lefty.
Yes.
Right.
And a lefty playing right-handed.
Yes.
I mean, that's why. Check. Yeah.
There's some really fun videos of guys, Taylor, what's his name, who passed away, that drummer,
Hawkins.
Dave Grohl.
Taylor Hawkins.
Yes, all these guys like interpreting Ringo, like they're doing, and they're playing. I forget what the song is, and it might be "Tomorrow Never Knows" or something like boom, dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dum, boom.
That's right. That's right.
And it's just so cool how much respect they have for Ringo. It's like he wasn't just he came from Rory whatever in the Storm, like whatever that band was, but this guy could play. He was.
That's right.
I mean, they were
personality, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he swung though. He made it swing.
Oh yes.
When you looked at him on Ed Sullivan, and you're already agog because you're looking at a band that's actually playing their own instruments, which wasn't very typical. Normally it would be the front singer and the band is somewhere else. Like they're not even in the picture, No,
they're behind the curtain. Yeah.
Yeah, they're there was, I don't know if I told this story about the guy the drummer who played on Pretty Woman for Roy Orbison, played on all the Everly stuff, all of the Chet Atkins stuff that was done in RCA, all of that stuff. And when he went to play at the Opry, they made him sit backstage, like he played from backstage.
Really?
They wouldn't allow a drummer on the stage.
Check it out.
I know, and this guy played on most of the most iconic songs of what I consider to be the greatest period of country music. But whatever.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, play one more, Bill.
Okay, I've got an easy one and a hard one.
Play both.
Ooh, do both. Do both.
I'll do the hard one, which is it's one that I've always liked, and it's just very. So this is by the band Orleans, and this was written by John Hall, and John Hall with his wife. They wrote, Still the One.
Oh,
yes. Dance with Me, all of those things, and this was kind of a little bit of a deeper cut on their probably their second album, and it's got like the wicked ass bridge, and I'll probably pooch it, but it's a crazy ass bridge, Time passes on like a river that must always run. Now you are gone. I will have you till time is done. You can never take away the love you gave me yesterday. And I don't have to capture you, 'cause you're here in my memory. My life goes on like a song that is never still. I'll sing your song to the emptiness I'll never fill. I don't need no photograph. See your face in front of me. We may never touch again, 'cause you're here in my memory. Hold on, folks. What once was will always be, and you've left your imprint on me. Sometimes I think it's the spark of conflict which we must respect most heavily. Help me. But I hope if you think of me, you remember always harmony. And my life goes on like a river that must always run. I'll sing that song to the emptiness I'll never fill. You may go, tip your way to the window yesterday, and you'll never touch again, 'cause you're here in my memory. What once was will always be, and you've left your imprint on me. Sometimes I think it's the spark of conflict which we affect most heavily. And I hope if you think of me, you'll remember always harmony. And time passes on like a river that was always run. Now you are gone. I will have you till time is gone. You can never take away what you gave me yesterday. You may have to capture you, 'cause you're here in my memory. Woo!
Woo!
What in the world is that?
Man,
wow.
You went there and you got through it.
Oh,
that's the easy one?
Yeah, boy.
No, that's the hard one.
Yeah, it had to be the hard one, Bill.
That is a
nice.
great. Well, it's we've talked about this before, but it's fun, and I don't know if there's the same thing exists for keyboardists, but as a guitarist, you can try to interpret keyboard parts. You can try to do that, and I don't know if that works as well for trying to interpret guitar parts if you're a keyboard player. I
don't think so, because guitar, a lot of times when you're picking on a guitar, you're not a piano. There's this tendency to I got the chord, but I'm going to go. You arpeggiate it that way or that way. You don't arpeggiate it.
Yeah, it's very hard to play like.
Right.
You play that on a piano, and it's going to be like block chords, and it's going to be weird.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that thing has a lot of that shit going on. To me, nothing ventured, nothing gained. That's the way I look at it.
So who did that song?
That was Orleans.
Oh, that's Orleans, yeah.
And Orleans is as many bands, they tend to get distilled down to a song or two songs or three songs. Like you listen to classic rock, and it's like,
I hate that.
Am I to believe that Jimi Hendrix only recorded 3 songs? Is that true?
I really hate that. Like they'll take Ray Charles, and it's like, I got a woman. Like, really? Yeah. That's the only freaking Ray Charles song. I have 10 records. Like, really?
No, it's like Ray Charles. It's going to be either Hit the Road Jack,
right.
Unchain My Heart,
right,
and maybe and probably.
Yeah, right.
What I say, right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah,
and
Stevie
it's
Wonder.
Like Ray is like.
Right, and in fact, a lot of people have it goes back to the olden days, the olden times when you listen to the whole record, and you'd be like, right. Even the Beatles, they had a record and they'd have one song in the record. You're like, what the hell is that? Like, what is that? But the record wouldn't be the record without that oddball song that they just threw.
Well, what's funny is there's a tendency to think of FM as being the seismic change. Back in the days when you're listening to AM radio and then FM, Allison Steele, WNEW, like that kind of thing. But honestly, AM in those days, in 1966, it could be Cream followed by Engelbert Humperdinck, followed by the Temptations, followed by Bobby Gentry, followed by it could be.
But you know what you're describing right now. So I kind of missed that a little. Like, I know there's a difference between AM and FM. I know there's a difference. And the record companies would say, this is our FM hit and this is our AM hit, or whatever.
There was a difference. But
what is it?
Difference.
Like, what is it? I've
well,
never
now AM is talk radio, basically, and FM is the only.
No, but in those days, like, musically, you would
it was
album
album
and it'd be like,
it was album cuts. It was like if you went to, you know, AM, you're hearing the singles, but the singles, like I said, it could be, you know, Sunshine of Your Love and Green Green Grass of Home, you know, like both good songs, you know, and The Association and whatever, and Procol Harum, Whiter Shade of Pale, and you know, the Rascals, and like, you know, it could be anything from Motown, you know, it's like it could be that.
Right.
But when you went onto FM, then you're hearing album cuts. You're hearing guys that didn't have, and you know, the machinery was a little less well defined in those days. I think, you know, like somebody could come out of nowhere and suddenly have this fucking hit. You know, that's, I think, a little more difficult now than it was then. And I could be wrong on that because, you know, there's some people, you know, I looked at some of the names of the people that were on the VMAs last night, you know, and I'm just like, I don't know any of them. I mean, I know some of them, but I don't know most of them. And I really don't care. I don't, I just know it's not going to have a bridge and it's not going to take me on a journey.
You're like Rick Beato. You're like the Rick Beato. You're like, what is this? Like, this isn't something.
Rick Beato, who is the greatest. He is the greatest.
I watched an interview. It must have been at the VMAs, and it was some pretty girl interviewer, and she was interviewing this guy who was obviously somebody. Like they were bowing to this guy. I have no idea who any of them are, right? And she says, you know, so name an artist that you, whatever it was that you that you like their old stuff, but you don't like their new stuff. Of course, they name an artist I've never even heard of, right? And he's like, he was talking just like you talk about Steely Dan and like, oh, I prefer the records before Gaucho, before Asia. Like, that totally means something to you. But if you don't know Steely Dan, like, the fuck is before Asia or before what, you know, like Gaucho? Who cares? What's just like another record? It's like, no, it's not. It's the one where they use the drum machine. But these people, like, he said to the interviewer, he said, I don't listen to so and so after this song, and she's like, that's his first song. He's like, exactly. I think everything else he does is garbage. He was great then, and he used a word for great that I don't even know. You're like, you know,
it's interesting too. You know, you have streaming, right? You know, and you have Pandora or Spotify. You know, sort of going through an algorithm and deciding what they think you would like to follow something you've chosen. Right. And what that essentially is like a governor on your imagination. It is a butt plug to the exploration and discovery of songs.
But you had the butt plug then too. It was called the program director at the station. You know,
it was much. I mean, honestly, the program director in those days. Well, I mean, in FM, the program director was like a college station director, which is not super stringent. You know, I mean, WFUV is programmed, you know, but college stations generally weren't back in the day.
Right. You can sneak something
FM
on the
back
air.
in the day was generally not, and you actually scored bigger points for going off the trail. But the AM thing, I believe the AM thing was literally, it wasn't a program in the sense like we want everything to sound the same. It was just like, what's selling? I mean, and it just went back to payola and it went back to everything else. But it was literally, that's why Cream could rub elbows with Petula Clark, you know, because they were both selling and there was room in the universe for both of them.
But I think back in those days, you talk about payola, you know, where the mob was involved or whatever. But I don't think the Spotify algorithm is so much of an algorithm. I think there's definitely an algorithm and there's automatic stuff going on, but there's also, you know, hey, Morty, this is Bob. Hey, we want to push this kid that that's still going on. You know, we want to make sure that everybody gets these, you know, plays.
But who's benefiting? You know, like I saw something on Facebook yesterday from Peter Frampton, you know, and Peter Frampton was talking about, you know, Baby, I Love Your Way or something like this. And it's had, I don't know if it was 55 million or 550 million hits. Like, let's say it's 55 million because it's bad enough. He's made $1,700 from that. $1,700.
Well, no, then it's more like 5 million. Yeah, they
no.
It's
like, it's 0.0001. It's like.
Yeah. Well, you get it for 1 million plays. You typically get about $3,000, $3,300 for 1 million plays. So when Drake gets 1 billion plays.
Maybe I don't know
the numbers. But if you're Peter Frampton, that might not be your cut. That might be the Peter Frampton organization cut, and he may only get a piece of that.
Well, I think or is that the cut that A&M gets, and then his cut comes after that? But
that's probably what's going on.
But I mean, as the composer and the performer, you should be making But I mean, the bottom line, I was in ShopRite the other day, and I hear "Heaven Is a Place on Earth," Belinda Carlisle, and it's a famous song where Jennifer Warren, who I think wrote it, and she's a famous songwriter. She's written 1 million hits. She published something years ago, like maybe even 10 years ago, and just published something about that thing was #1, heavy rotation MTV. It had 1 million or something. She made like $48. The thing, I mean, it's I don't think that you make $3,000 for 1 million hits. I actually don't. I mean, I think it's less than that. It's a lot less than that.
Yeah, no, that's the gross number. But then if you're an artist, you have a record company, they get a piece of that, and so I understand that. But
I think possibly the record company gets the biggest piece of it.
Yep.
Which to me, and that's to me that's the shame of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, you signed that contract back when you were a kid, and you said I belong to you, and then they go, here, we'll lend you $5 million, and then we'll start hiring people and throwing parties.
But Peter Frampton didn't sign a contract that foresaw the future of streaming and downloading.
Right.
The commensurate compensation of what he signed a contract for, he did just fine when Frampton Came Alive went out. Yeah, he made millions and millions of dollars.
Sure.
Because the contract he signed was that. What it is now, it's a different ballgame. And
there wouldn't have been a Peter Frampton now if there weren't for Spotify. I mean, there is no record store anymore. And if they didn't load up Peter Frampton into Spotify wouldn't really notice. It's
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. It's hard to say though, because there is almost, other than possibly hip hop, there is no base more loyal than classic rock, like none. Like those guys can tour forever. They're not selling product, and the Stones made a big splash. They just put out a new record. Who the fuck? I wouldn't buy it. I mean, I don't. I haven't listened to it. I've seen it, but I haven't really listened. And maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But I'm not interested. It's not. But I'll listen to Between the Buttons or Exile on Main Street anytime. It's like It's hard.
In that sense, it's great because what they've done. From a consumer point of view, forget about the money and the artist and all that stuff. Consumer point of view, I now I can kind of get anything I want whenever I want. I can, I can be on a drive. I can be going down the highway at 70 miles an hour and go, I want to listen to everything Supertramp ever did or everything. And I don't have to go find a record store, call my friend who I love super, borrow the record or a tape. And, that's kind of nice as a consumer to have that.
Well, the accessibility is there. It's not universal. You can go on. My daughter gave me Alexa, right? And I'll go on there and I'll say Alexa, play Moby Grape, and they'll be like, Moby Grape can only be listened to with the blah 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 blah.
Yeah, right.
And guess what? In my 26,000 song iPod, Moby Grape can be listened to right now and a lot.
Right. Right.
And there's a million songs of Moby Grape that I have downloaded, and it's like
right.
And but not even really downloaded. They just come from different, obviously downloaded technically, but they've come from different sources. They haven't come from iTunes, and
sure.
They've come from me stealing things off the internet, which
correct.
which isn't, nothing to be certainly proud of, but in most cases, they're things that they didn't release. They should have released, but they didn't because no one's going to put their money behind it.
That's right. And you remember you used to go to your friend and be like, hey, I have a cassette player, a cassette deck, and can I borrow your tape or your record and record it on my cassette deck? Because otherwise you wouldn't have it. You couldn't afford it.
But it's like, we're looking, the three people I'm looking at in our little Partridge family tonight, it's like, I'm willing to take a wild stab that, well, and Ed, I'm not sure about you because you're so much younger. No, because you're considerably younger. But in my world, when records came out,
yep,
it was a big fucking deal.
I remember. Oh, yeah. No, I'm part of that.
You sat there. I went to Eddie Wright's house and we sat there with Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? And we listened to it, side one, flip, side two, and then listened to it again and then talked about it and then listened to it again. Right. And it was just experientially, it was a different thing. It wasn't just oral wallpaper, it was something that had great import to you, and, some of that is from being a musician. Some of that is just, sure. There's a lot of people from that period of time who weren't musicians, but they feel kind of the same way. It was important to them when albums got released. And,
sure. You see and you know what? Part of that too is there wasn't a lot to do back then. Like, you want to build a fort, or do you want to we could watch Creature Feature on WNEW, or we could watch Channel 13, Sesame Street, or we could listen to a record. Like, there wasn't that much you could do,
But I mean, you're at a certain age. You're driving a car, and half the things you just described are off the charts at that point. You're driving a car. It's music. It's music, girls.
Right.
Dating, playing, bands, whatever. It's like, but it was and Rick Beato had a great interview with Sting and Sting's guitarist Dominic Miller, and. Right. And it was the same thing from them. He's a Geordie boy, he's in England, and the same thing for him. Album comes out and he's younger, he's younger than me for sure, and it's like, it was a big deal for them. And music's the greatest.
Music's the greatest. Yeah, absolutely. You want to do the easy song, and then we're going to call the show.
Okay. I'll do the easy song.
And I noticed David Robinson made it through the whole show.
I know, and thank you, Bill, for playing, because it gives me a chance to multitask and cook.
Oh,
so I can hear, I can hear, and I'm putting it together.
All right.
Okay, so this is a song that I think was written by Ray Price and George Jones, two great country icons. And the first time I heard it was the Everly Brothers did it. But, will you tell me that you care? Now you're going to leave me crying. There's no denying you done me wrong. If I could look inside your heart, maybe I would know the reason that you're leaving. Whoa, what fell down? You done me wrong. Well, you know that it's not so when you say you tried. Well, you know you lied. I didn't do one wrong thing to you. Won't you tell me, baby, why you went and left me here so lonely? I miss you only, for I love you. Did I ever make you sad so you'd be mad enough to hurt me and desert me for so long? Well, you're telling everyone what you've done. You think it's funny. Well, listen, honey, you done me wrong. Well, you know that it's not so when you say you tried. Well, you know you lied. I didn't do one wrong thing for you. Won't you tell me, baby, why you went and left me here so lonely? I miss you only. You done me wrong.
Very nice, very nice.
It's funny. I look at like behind me. This is like I should get money from Casio.
You should. You promoted Casio every show, 160 shows.
It's like a little. It's like this little piece of shit keyboard. I mean, it's regular size that a friend of my son's was just going to throw out. So I took it and actually played one show with it. We did a New York show in Pinckney, and Fonda did this great version of New York State of Mind, and I played the string part on that thing, and it sounded great. Like the string part just sounded friggin' awesome. She was.
Well, what's happening now is that the anything like everything is software now, and so like the young generation, they're like, oh, an old Casio, that's like a classic vintage instrument. You're like, what? It's like an old piece of shit. What?
No, but that's always it. Stomp boxes for guitarists. It's like I still have my M90 phase shifter. It's like it's so awesome, and I never made it better.
You can buy a machine now that's a computer that has emulations of everything, but it's not the real thing. With the crackly connector and whatever. It's not the real thing.
No, can't beat that. Well,
all right, gentlemen, it's great. That's it for GMTV.
Love you guys.
The three amigos. Love you, Dave.
Bill.
That was a fun show.
We'll
Very
see.
Nice. I'll see you guys later. Now for something completely different.
We're on the team.
That was quite a show.
We're out of drop now.
Oh, wow.